Let's see here. All right, and we are live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So today we got a lot to talk about in our live stream. We're going to look at a story of the latest crypto hack that never was, okay? So we've seen lots of exploits happen in the crypto space over the past year. You know, crypto hacks have added up to close to $2 billion or more. I can't remember the actual stats off the top of my head. We've seen lots of hacks over the past year, like the Solana wormhole, Nomad bridge, Axie Infinity Ronin bridge, and it seems like, you know, we're seeing this happen all the time, but today we actually have some good news of an attack that was narrowly averted and how the hacker lost big time during this, okay? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to look at a lot of updates that have happened in the space since yesterday. We're going to answer some of your questions and a whole lot more. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to become a blockchain master, step-by-step, start to finish, land your first blockchain job, I can show you how to do that over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. All right, so we got people jumping in the chat here. We got technically automatic beats, Madison Dale. Let's see here, Kodia. I didn't eat breakfast. Awesome. Jay Lee, Adam. Let's see here, Alden, Ardal. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so let's jump into this. Let's talk about the latest crypto hack that was narrowly averted and how the hacker lost big time during this process. So this all went down over the past couple of days with another bridge exploit attempt. Okay, so, you know, what is that in case you're not familiar? So one of the biggest sort of categories of hacks that we've seen over the past year and or so have been with bridges. So, you know, what are those? So basically bridges are just something that lets you move between different blockchains without the, you know, aid of a centralized cryptocurrency exchange or something like that. Let's say you got cryptocurrency on one blockchain, you want to move it to a different one. You know, a lot of people would go deposit on a cryptocurrency exchange like Binance or Coinbase or, you know, Gemini, Kraken, whatever, and then deposit, you know, and then just swap it and go to a different chain. But what if you want to do that without the aid of a centralized exchange? Well, you have to use a bridge, okay? And so, you know, bridges are notorious for getting exploited, all right, for user funds being taken, because there's nothing about these two blockchains that natively talk to one another, whatever blockchain you're going from, whether it's going to Bitcoin to Ethereum to, you know, Binance Smart Chain, whatever it is, right? So you have to build something that facilitates that transfer, and that's where the vulnerability comes into play, because there's usually, you know, money sitting on either blockchain that facilitates the deposit and withdrawal, and usually some sort of process in the middle that has the central point of failure that gets exploited. Okay, so like I said before, this has happened multiple times over the past year. Solana wormhole, Nomad bridge, Axie Infinity Ronin bridge, you know, stuff like that. So yes, you know, this is actually a story of a bridge that was able to rescue the funds automatically from the hackers who attempted to exploit it. Okay, so attackers tried to exploit Near Protocol's Rainbow Bridge, and they actually lost 5 Ethers, over $8,000 from their own wallet, so at the current rates, over the weekend after automated security processes by the bridge validators kicked in and mitigated the threat in under 31 seconds. Like, boom, instantly rejected. Okay, so blockchain-based bridges, that's exactly what I was telling you a minute ago. And there's over $2.3 billion of assets locked in the protocols. I think the thumbnail on the video actually says 2.8, but it was $2.3 billion worth of assets locked in the protocols that were potentially at risk, that were saved by this particular you know, auto recovery mechanism here. So the developer said on Monday that the attacker submitted a fabricated near block to the Rainbow Bridge contract over the weekend by putting up a safe deposit of 5 Ether. So let's look at how that works right here. Let's pull this on my screen here. So this was similar to the May attack. On user funds were lost. The attack was mitigated automatically 36 seconds. So basically, the Rainbow Bridge is based on trustless assumptions with no selected middlemen to transfer messages or assets between chains. Okay, so that's a little bit different from some of the bridges we've seen in the past. Because of this, anyone can interact with its smart contracts, including the Near Light client. So usually it's Rainbow Bridge relayers who submit info on the Near blocks to Ethereum. However, sometimes others are doing this, usually with bad intention. So what he's saying is you know, when you're talking about bridges, like I said before, you have to have a place for the money to sit on each blockchain, because that's how it works. If you're going to transfer funds from one place to another, there has to be funds so that you can actually withdraw on the other chain, because you have to think about it that way. Whenever you're doing a transfer between blockchains, it's not a transfer, it's a deposit and then a withdrawal, and you have to have something on either side of the chain to where you can, you know, do that. So with many bridges, you have something that sits in the middle that moves the messages across the chain. But in this case, like, anybody has access potentially to these smart contracts where they could try to inject, you know, instructions to release funds on one side. And that's exactly what this person tried to do. It backfired big time, causing them to lose you know, 5 Ether in the process. So the incorrectly submitted information to the near light client may result in the loss of funds on the bridge. That's why this step secured with the most solid thing, a consensus of near validators. So if someone tries to submit incorrect info, then it would be challenged by independent watchdogs who are also observed the near blockchain. Basically, you can see more about that here, but that's what they try to do. They try to submit a fabricated near block on the Rainbow Bridge contract, and during the transaction, the safe deposit, they required 5 ETH to do that, and that safe deposit was essentially slashed and burned after they deposited this. So basically, the transaction was submitted at this block, okay? So there was no reaction, which resulted in an attacker losing their safe deposit. It only took 31 seconds or 4 Ethereum blocks at the current block time. So it's interesting. They were saying that this was also at a point in the night where they would not expect the security team to be up and checking things, but they actually got a notification and saw that it was taken care of successfully. No user funds were compromised, and they went back to sleep without any issues. So there's some good news on the bridge exploit front, because, like I was saying before, it seems like at least once a month we're seeing stories of major exploits happen with blockchain bridges. They've gotten a really bad reputation for not being safe to use, and it's kind of a hard thing because we have this multi-chain ecosystem where people are moving between things. But we actually have a story here of a bridge that was able to successfully fend itself off from attacks. So we'll see if this type of thing can happen again with other bridges in the future. So that being said, not all bridges are created equally, right? They all work. Many of them have different ways that they implement the transfer or deposit withdrawal behavior that I was talking about before. And not all exploits are created equally either. Not all exploits are done the same way. Many of them typically find creative new ways to do the exploits. So there's good learnings from this right here, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's completely safe and we've just fixed bridges for the future. So I don't think this is the last bridge exploit that we've seen, but hopefully there'll be more stories like this of bridge exploits that have been averted and user funds have stayed safe. Somebody says, let's hack. So, good thing about this, though, it's important to understand these types of things. Number one, to keep yourself safe. But again, blockchain security is a highly coveted skill in the space. And if you understand how these exploits happen and you're able to disclose those to other people for the sake of, keeping the entire community safe, there's often a major upside for that, especially in terms of, bounties on chain, but also... bounties on chain, but also, just work as a security auditor if that's something that you want to do and focus on in your career. So, what bridge was attacked? It was the Rainbow Bridge attack between Near and ETH. So one thing I wanted to update you all on in terms of some cool innovations happening. So kind of seeing the space come together is what's going on with the ENS integration with Coinbase. So what you need to understand is, I think there's a lot of people, excuse me, who underestimate, maybe overestimate, I should say, the pace at which innovation happens in the crypto space and how it becomes this mature ecosystem over time. Okay. And I think part of that is just sort of the bias of looking at the not complete, but very mature internet that we have right now, or just the mature landscape of like consumer electronics and how they integrate with the internet, like a phone, like a smartphone with basically what you can do with it now. Like, so many apps, you have so many rich websites, you have so many social media, networks that you can just, it's crazy how integrated all that is into everyday lives. But if you look back and seeing what the internet was in the early days, especially let's say like the mid 90s or later, like it was really hard to envision that world with any degree of clarity that far out. And, you're also seeing all these little small innovations along the way. Like in one sense it's fast, in other sense it's very slow, and I honestly at a glacial pace. But it's important to see where each little brick is laid in that wall before it builds a foundation, and that ultimately speeds up over time as you have, more bricks in that wall. You can lay more bricks on top of it much, much faster. And so some of these early innovations seem like they take forever, but it's one of those things where it's a snowball effect where, once the snowball has momentum, it can really start rolling. And I like watching every single, brick. My camera keeps messing up here. I'm not sure what's going on. I like seeing every single brick laid in the wall as that continues to happen. So I'm showing you an example of this. So, ENS, or the Ethereum name service, is one thing that I think is a big deal in terms of blockchain adoption, because I think digital identity is a huge crypto use case for the future, because it's a way where you can get a benefit out of blockchain, where you can use the blockchain itself for some function that it can integrate and make other hybrid web applications. So what's an example? So basically, like in the future that I see, like we don't necessarily use the blockchain for everything, right? Like it doesn't make sense to use everything on the blockchain. So let's say you have some sort of like Web 3.0 social media application. Like, why would you put everything? You don't necessarily need to put everything on chain, right? You don't necessarily put everything on chain. But there'd be some really important parts of that you would want to put on chain, okay? And one way that blockchain can facilitate a Web 3.0 future is basically managing digital identity, where you have this identity that carries with you from application to application. And maybe there is a setup process for that identity where you have to write new information to the blockchain about you, okay? Or maybe like when you do certain things, that gets written about you to the blockchain. And then you could have all these apps that use rich Web 2.0 experiences. Like, let's say Twitter became a Web 3.0 social media app. It already has a momentum of a big following, okay? But you could integrate like Web 3.0 user ID and management into it. You could basically have a Web 3.0 ID already set up and then just log in with that ID. And now you have a user account on Twitter without all that extra setup steps. And let's say other social media applications did the same. Well, your social graph could just transfer between accounts because you already have that connection to those users across the blockchain itself, okay? So that's why I think digital identity is a huge deal. There's lots of other reasons, but I think ENS is a pretty critical player in that regard, basically like having blockchain-based domain names for your wallet, because it gives that, really hard to read machine address that your wallet knows, which is, part of your the key pair associated with your wallet. And basically giving like a domain name like, my username.eth or something, okay? So we've seen Coinbase actually integrate with ENS lately, and basically you can see how it takes the user's name, automatically makes it an ENS subdomain of cb.id. And so what does this do? Like, how does this work? Well, basically, you can, so Coinbase basically, trying to think about how to explain this. So there's an integration with ENS and DNS. Okay, so what does that mean? So basically, DNS stands for domain name services. Okay, that's like if you were going to create a blog or like a website or something, and you went to like GoDaddy or Google Domains or Namecheap or something like that, and you registered, like my awesomecookingblog.com or something, and then you point that to like your hosting account. The layer where you do that registrar, that's DNS. That's domain name services. You might have to go in there, configure your domain name, like point it to your server. That's all DNS stuff and DNS management. So hence ENS, the Ethereum name service, how you register Ethereum names and resolve them to certain addresses. That's sort of the idea here. So anyways, you can basically take this feature on ENS and do DNS to ENS import. Basically, we can take any regular web domain and point it to an ENS name, which is pretty cool. Okay, so basically, you can see how they do that. So .cb.id, okay, and then now you can point like a subdomain of anything. So an ID. So this is Coinbase.id, and then you can have that resolved to an Ethereum address, which is pretty cool. So, some people say we don't necessarily see the .eth usernames be like the standard. Well, it could actually be the standard underneath the hood, and then anybody can sort of have this vanity domain that has multiple subdomains that actually uses the ENS protocol underneath, okay, just like DNS, okay, where you could have some unique, domain name. And honestly, this doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be unique as far as DNS goes. I think it could actually be, as far as I understand, it could just be a unique name that just satisfies these conditions that can be resolved with ENS. So that's huge. So like, let's say you had registered a blog like I was talking about before, or like a e-commerce store where you had, it's really common, or like any app on like a hosting service. So like, I don't know if you've deployed on like a hosting service like Netlify, or you've created a WordPress site where you have like, it just gives you the name of your site, and it's a subdomain of and then the host, let's say it's like, netlifyapp.com or something. This is a similar type of thing where you just have a unique subdomain for this type of thing, blockchain wallet. And it just opens the door for all these kinds of use cases where you could, create blockchain-based Web 3.0 apps where you could spin up a new app and manage it on a subdomain with something like this with .eth. And also for users, like if you had users on a network, you could register their unique subdomains and resolve them to Ethereum addresses just like this. Somebody says when I snap at the camera, I'm trying to get your attention. Yes, I'm trying to get your attention. Pay attention. It's awesome. Now I'm trying to get it to focus. Like I don't understand exactly what's happening with the camera. Maybe Artem can tell me what's going on here, but basically like every now and then it's really intermittent. There's a kind of no rhyme or reason. Like sometimes I'll have like an entire week where it never does it after recording videos or on the live streams, and then sometimes it'll just start happening like all the time where it just like zooms out and like looks gross. I don't know what it is. Do I think all these side chains and layer 2s will survive? It depends on what you mean by survive. Like very few of them are going to turn off, you know what I mean? Just because of the incentives, okay? But very few of them, in my opinion, long-term will flourish into vibrant ecosystems. Some of them might exist on life support over time. And, at some point they might turn off, but who knows? I mean, like I said, the incentives are there to stay alive. It just, yeah. So speaking of Coinbase, this is an interesting chart. Coinbase has been at the top of the conversation recently because of what's going on with the Ethereum merge, with censorship, with, Coinbase running validators And we've seen questions asked publicly of Coinbase whether they're going to support censorship at the protocol level or not. All that type of stuff. Anyways, another thing to add on Coinbase from the Coinbase front is this. So I saw this chart yesterday. That's pretty interesting. Not widely reported, but there has been significant progress on crypto regulatory clarity over the past year amongst G20. So lots more green and yellow here compared to a year ago. So basically, emerging consensus will drive much greater adoption. So this is the regulatory tracker as of August 2022. So you can see like the countries, all right, and what do we have clarity on? So a crypto framework, all right, the tax, so AML, okay, anti-money laundering, travel rule, stablecoin regulation, and CBDCs, okay. So you can see the different key here, so regulatory process and not initiated, underway, regulatory in place, and then prohibition. So there's very little prohibition. I mean, China's basically the only one that's got like prohibition across the board. Regulation in place. We got a lot more green on here, a lot more yellow regulation underway, especially with CBDCs. That stands for central bank digital currency. Those are really in their infancy, except for China's got a, clear check mark from that. We kind of discussed that on the channel some. Regulatory process not initiated. That's very few things, especially like in the United States. Yeah, I mean, this is the ones that we kind of expect, like a crypto framework. We're talking about the infrastructure bill, talking about the stablecoin regulation. Of course, that's one that I think we're firmly in the crosshairs for because of the bad news that's gone down with stablecoins this year alone. Okay, so crypto regulations, in my opinion, I think crypto can exist just fine without these regulatory frameworks, but I am a realist in understanding that, it's inevitable. So how do we fight for the best trade-offs that we can get in terms of regulatory clarity? So also that being said, because I expect them to be inevitable, I think once they come, and if we can get them to be as favorable as possible, that will be a positive thing for the industry because there'll be fewer people sitting on the sidelines, waiting to really participate in full force because it lacks this regulatory clarity. I think that's one of the big hindrances from especially bigger players, kind of going full on into the space is because last thing somebody wants to do is enter into a space where their capital is compromised in some way by regulations that get smacked down after the fact. So it's a good question in the chat. So what happens to ERC20 tokens after the merge? Isn't it more like a hard fork instead of a merge? Do the ERC20 tokens need to do anything? It won't be 10K ERC20 tokens need to convert to ETH 2.0. So good question. So let's talk about the Ethereum merge for a second. We'll clarify this question. So we have the Ethereum merge coming up, okay? This is Ethereum moving to proof of stake. All right. We're going to replace proof of work, move to proof of stake. And we have the beacon chain running right now. It's going to get merged back into the Ethereum that everybody knows and uses right now. And proof of stake will be turned on. So that's 23 days away until September 15th, the approximate date of the merge. Nobody knows for sure the exact date because it's hard to forecast with a high degree of accuracy. The total terminal difficulty, that's what we use to actually say, boom, the merge is going to go off. We get pretty close. So let's just assume that it's September 15th for now. We'll know for sure a lot closer to that time, okay? So the question on the table with the merge is, are you going to get free coins, basically? So there's some specifics behind this. So where does this question come from? We've seen forks happen in the past where you see chains actually split off into two chains, okay? Where basically, we've seen this with Bitcoin forks in the past. We've seen lots of the other blockchains. And so the whole idea is like if you held money on one chain that splits off into two, like now you have wallets on each chain, and shouldn't you get free money? So the answer is yes and no. So or most likely, and no. So what happens to ERC20 tokens with the merge? So let me get to this. Answer this question kind of a roundabout way. So we are actually seeing a remnant of miners push for a proof of work version of Ethereum to stay behind after the merge and actually maintain it. Okay, I actually saw some updates on this yesterday. See if I can find it. Let's actually. It's basically proof of work ETH. Okay, so let me see if I can. Anyways, we're seeing more updates on this. Basically, this is a miner-led effort to fork Ethereum with some modifications. Basically, they have EIP 155 enforced. Okay, all that type of stuff. And so, like, this, it's probably going to happen. Like, I don't know how viable the chain's going to be, but it's probably going to happen. Okay. Now, is that ETH going to be worth anything? Who knows? Now, we've seen the price of it on CoinMarketCap, like the actual IOU version of that Ethereum. Let's just look at it here. We're seeing IOUs traded forward on some exchanges, and the price of those IOUs has basically like not done so hot, right? You've kind of just done this, okay? So, you know, you might get some free coins of Ether, but the question is, how do you actually cash out of them? Like, are you going to be registered on exchanges that actually support it? And if you're not, and then you have to go register for those exchanges, then like, is there going to be any liquidity, right? Or is it all going to be traded away by the time you get there? You know what I mean? Or is the price going to move on you by the time you get there is what I mean to say. You know, so that's something to think about. Now, the question on the table really is about ERC20 tokens. So it's the same problem. Okay, it's the same problem because ERC20 tokens are just cryptocurrencies that are powered by smart contracts. If you're not familiar with what ERC20 tokens are, how they work, basically Ethereum and other EVM compatible chains lets you create a new cryptocurrency without creating a new blockchain, right? Ether is the cryptocurrency that's native to the Ethereum blockchain. That's what you pay the gas fees on. It's just built in. Like no developers created that who build on top of ETH. Like the developers who built ETH, but all the other tokens like, you know, Tether, you know, Uniswap token, whatever ERC20 token that you want to name here. Those are powered by smart contracts that live on top of the network. So the question on the table is, if the chain forks into two chains, like, would you get free ERC20 tokens? Or I think that maybe the question is basically like, when the merge happens, is there a case of just getting free coins? Well, this is a way that you could get free coins. Okay. Now the question is, are they actually be worth anything? Because, you know, how are you going to cash out of them? Are you going to go to an exchange? Are they actually going to support them? The DEXs aren't necessarily going to work properly on top of Ethereum. Like the DeFi apps probably aren't going to work properly. They've already seen cases on the ETH proof of work, the fork, the non-Ethereum standard version, right? So they've already seen like cases where they're saying that, hey, we're going to freeze assets that are in certain pools that are paired with ETH, try to make the fork viable, which I think has kind of caused a lot of backlash before the fork. So anyways, that's the answer to that question. It's kind of a long answer, but... All right, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. There really helps the videos out, so I'm going to learn about blockchain. And if you're as fast at this technology as I am, you know, you want to get your hands dirty. How can you get started today? You go to my YouTube homepage. You find those free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but totally free. I just put out a 4-hour tutorial on how to learn Solidity. So definitely go check that out if you haven't already. You like those videos, you want to take the next step, hey, maybe you'll take a master shortcut entirely. I should become a blockchain master step-by-step start to finish. Land your first blockchain developer job over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You know, you don't have to be an expert to get started today. Help people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. Until next time, thanks for